There are also those who've criticized our decision to end parts of Constellation as one that will hinder space exploration below low Earth orbit. But it's precisely by investing in groundbreaking research and innovative companies that we will have the potential to rapidly transform our capabilities, even as we build on the important work already completed through projects like Orion for future missions. And unlike the previous program, we are setting a course with specific and achievable milestones. Early in the next decade, a set of crewed flights will test and prove the systems required for exploration beyond low Earth orbit. The systems required for exploration beyond low Earth orbit.
Water, how do you recycle the oxygen? It's the main crucible test bed where we've been trying to grind out all the lessons that will eventually let us go to the moon, that will eventually let us go to the moon.
Astronauts to the moon.
Well, that's a great question. The plan that NASA has is to build a rocket called SLS, which is a heavy lift rocket. It's something that is much bigger than what we have today, and it will be able to launch the Orion capsule with humans on board, as well as landers or other components to destinations beyond Earth orbit. Right now, we only can fly in Earth orbit. That's the farthest that we can go. And this new system that we're building is going to allow us to go beyond and hopefully take humans into the solar system to explore. So the moon, Mars, asteroids, there's a lot of destinations that we could go to. And we're building these building block components in order to allow us to do that eventually.
The technologies that we're testing out on Space Station are definitely helping us with our goals of going beyond low Earth orbit. So we have a really robust exploration program at NASA.
I'm not going to tell you the title of the sermon yet. What I want to do is I want to ask you a few questions. It's not going to be unorthodox, it's just going to be questions. Raise your hand if you agree with what I'm about to say. Do you agree that the government or science lied to us about evolution? Raise your hand. Do you believe and agree that the government or science lied to us about the Big Bang? Do you believe and do you agree that the government lied about our Earth? What I'm going to preach to you is that the Earth is actually flat and you've been lied to your whole life. So let me ask you a few questions. Those of you, I'm not going to put anything against you. I'm not going to make you feel bad. Raise your hand if you believe that the Earth is a sphere. It's okay. Let me ask you something. Do you know anything why you believe that? Let me ask you 4 questions that you should know if you honestly believe this. 1. What is the angle of the axis of our rotation of the Earth? About 23.5, correct. How fast does the Earth spin around the sun, according to science? Raise your hand if you know the answer. What is the formula for the curvature of the Earth if you believe that the Earth is a sphere? Nobody? Okay, so what the formula is it's 8 inches per mile squared. So one person, maybe 2, had the answer to all those to two of those questions. But you guys believe in something, right? You guys believe in this thing, right? But do you honestly, from your heart know anything about it? Or do you believe it because you've been taught it since you were a child? In the same way we're taught evolution from childhood, everybody in this room raised their hand. They told me they do not believe in the Big Bang. You know you have to believe in the Big Bang to believe that the Earth is a sphere? You don't get to pick. The reason I say that is because the Earth is spinning around the sun, according to the science, because of the sun's gravity. The sun is traveling through our galaxy at 515,000 miles per hour. Why is it doing that? Because of the Big Bang. And our galaxy is continuing to travel even faster than that into nothing. Obviously, the galaxy is traveling through the universe, but the universe is expanding into nothing. That's what science tells you. So you have to believe in the Big Bang to believe that the Earth is a sphere. You don't get to pick. And people that try and make this distinction, no, the Earth is a sphere, and it's circling around the sun, and our galaxy is moving at 515,000 miles per hour, and there's billions of other planets, and there's billions of other stars, but the Big Bang isn't true, and evolution isn't true. You don't get to say that. It's the unholy trinity. You have to believe in three, or you don't get to believe in any of them. In Proverbs 18 and verse 13, it says, "He that answereth a matter before he heareth it, it is folly and shame unto him." So if you already made up your mind about what I just told you before I told you any scripture, that's a shameful thing to do. I want you to keep an open mind, keep your eyes open, read what I'm telling you. You're going to go to each verse with me. In Hosea chapter 4, verse 6, it says, "My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, because thou hast rejected knowledge. I will also reject thee, that thou shalt be no priest to me. Seeing thou hast forgotten the law of God, I will forget thy children." So the Lord has shown me this to be true. And science proves this without a doubt, and I'll show you that as we go through. So the Earth is a circle, but I'm going to explain everything to you from the Bible first. So what you're seeing on top, you see that circular dome looking thing? That is what's called the firmament. That is what the Bible calls the firmament. So you're in Genesis chapter 1. It says, "God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the water." So this is creation. What happened is there was water, and God put a firmament between it. You see that dome? I'm going to explain to you what that is through Scripture. That is the firmament. And everything is within the firmament, not out in the universe. Let me prove that to you. And it said in verse 7, "And God made the firmament and divide the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament." So you see that there's waters which we have under the firmament, sea, land, that's under the firmament. Then there's waters also above. Keep that in mind. Above this firmament. What does firmament mean? Well, firmament, the first word firma, actually just means solid, and ment is just the end of a noun. So it just means solid thing. If you look in Ezekiel chapter 10 in verse 1, it says, "Then I looked, and behold, in the firmament that was above the head of the cherubims, there appeared over them, as it were, a sapphire stone, as the appearance of the likeness of a throne." So above the cherubims is God's throne. And there's a firmament above them. And it says, as it were, a sapphire stone, the appearance and the likeness of a throne. I believe that to be describing the throne itself, not the firmament. There's a firmament above the head of the cherubims where God's throne is. Where God's throne is, it's describing a firmament under him. You see that? The firmament is under it. So I'm going to show you what a firmament actually is. Revelation chapter 4, look in verse 6. "And before the throne there was a sea of glass, like unto crystal. And in the midst of the throne, round about the throne, were four beasts full of eyes before and behind." So what is the firmament? It's a sea of glass. It is described by the Bible. The word itself actually does mean solid thing, But according to God's word, it's a sea of glass. And that actually makes sense when you look at Genesis chapter 1. You need something that is hard to divide water from water. So I'm telling you that the firmament is what divides the waters from the waters, and it is essentially like a circular disc, is what the earth is, with a dome on top of it. And this dome is glass. Maybe not what we think of as glass, but God created a solid thing. Job 37 verse 18. It says, "Hast thou with him spread out the sky, which is strong and as molten looking glass." So the firmament is glass. It's as molten looking glass. The firmament was under the throne, that sea of glass, and it is also what divides the waters from the waters. Okay, so what you're seeing here is a printout from Wikipedia. And remind you, I'm describing the firmament. There's something called Operation Dominic, and if you look at the right, you see that explosion at the right there? That explosion on the right, it says Dominic Chama. I want you to keep an eye on that. You see that? So what happened is, if you look at the last sentence in the first paragraph, it says, "The Thor missile was used to lift warheads into near space to conduct high-altitude nuclear explosion tests. These shots were collectively called Operation Fishbowl." So what happened was the government, when they started making missiles that were powerful enough that they thought they could break through the sea of glass, they, during the Cold War, used the Cold War as a tactic for exploding high-altitude missiles to try and break through what they already knew was the dome on the earth. And I'm going to prove all this to you that the government has always known that the earth is flat. It lies to us through TV, through the media, through movies. It makes you believe the world is a spinning ball hurtling through space like a marble. They even called it Operation Fishbowl. Does that not make you feel any more like you're in a flat earth with a bowl on top? They called it Operation Fishbowl, and it was to shoot missiles into space because they thought they had the power to finally break through the firmament. And actually what happens, if you read the rest of the article, these missiles would hit up at a certain altitude, and then light would shine all the way to the other hemisphere. And the reason that was is because they were hitting that glass, and the glass was reflecting it all the way across the sky. Why would they just shoot a missile in the air to see how high it can blow up? Are they just playing with rubber bands? Like, they're doing it for a reason, and they called it Operation Fishbowl for a reason. And also their original name was Dominic Jarman. Dominic is from the late Roman Italic name Dominicus, and it means belonging to God. And then that word chama is a fixed, massive, irregular, inequivalent shell. So they originally called it the shell belonging to God, but then they just termed it Operation Fishbowl. Genesis 7, look in verse 11. It says, "In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, the 17th day of the month, the same day were all the fountains of the great deep broken up, and the windows of heaven were open." So, some people will just look at this figuratively. But when you realize that the earth is flat, you start to see the Bible a lot more literally. everything starts to be more literal. Stars falling to the earth, the sun and the moon being within the firmament will make a lot more sense when we start going over how the sun and the moon circulate the earth, not the other way around. We do not circle the sun. That is false. That's a false teaching. So what's happening here is when he's opening the windows of heaven, remember we said the firmament was dividing the waters from the waters. So when he's opening the windows of heaven, what is coming down? The waters that he had divided, that's how he's able to flood the entire earth. How do you flood a ball earth that's spinning like a tennis ball? Have you ever seen a wet tennis ball and you throw it and all of the water comes off of it as it's spinning? Well, they say the reason that the water doesn't leave the earth is because of gravity. But if gravity is strong enough to hold in trillions of tons of water to the earth, but a balloon can fly, a bird can leave the earth at any point, you don't have to feel like you're being pulled down at every second, but trillions of tons of water are held to the earth. Does that make any sense? What actually is happening is it's called density. So anything that is more dense than air will sink in air. Anything that's more dense in water will sink in water. Why is gravity stopping you from, let's say, you know how Isaac Newton, got hit on the head with an apple? That was because the apple was more dense than the air. And he got hit. If he was in water, that apple would have stopped right on the water. Why is the apple not going through the water if it's gravity pulling it down to the center? Because it's not more dense than the water. It's just a simple matter of density. They try and make gravity seem like the all-encompassing thing. And that's why they say because of gravity, we can have multiple universes. Because of gravity, we can have all these things happening. Why is it that there's no observable form of gravity on Earth? There is no object massive enough to have other objects come cling to it in the way that the sun does. They say that the sun is so heavy that the earth and the moon and all the planets circle around it. But if that is the case, why is that not observable anywhere on the planet? You cannot see that case anywhere. And if the gravity of the moon is strong enough to bring the tides in and out, why would that ever happen if the moon has less mass than the earth? Shouldn't the thing that has more mass be bringing the gravity to it? Not the thing that has less mass bringing the gravity towards its way? It doesn't make any sense. Their logic doesn't make any sense. And the pictures that you see of space, the pictures that you see of all these planets and all these galaxies, NASA has admitted that they're all fake. They're CGI. And they say they have to be CGI because they want you to believe a lie. And let me just tell you, satellites are got to be the stupidest thing. Have you ever seen a satellite? Doesn't it just look like R2-D2? Like they're messing with you. They're messing with you. They say the satellites spin around the Earth in the thermosphere. The thermosphere is 2,500 degrees Celsius according to their science. And the satellites are made of titanium. It burns at 1,600 degrees. It melts. They lie to you. They just mess with your mind. They say it's made of gold. Gold has an even lower melting point, 1,200 degrees. It's like embarrassing, some of the things that they're willing to do. And I'm going to show you some pictures from NASA of how they just completely and blatantly lie to our face. But they make you to believe that anybody that tells you differently is a crazy person. These are actual depictions from NASA of what the Earth has looked like over the years. These are literally from NASA, released to the public. Look in 1975. See that big massive thing of clouds, but then you can see a little bit of continent under it? Look at 1997. You see the size all the way to the right. You see the size of that continent? 1997, the size. But then look at 2012. Right here, right in the third row over in the bottom. Look how big that continent got. The Earth's the same size, but that continent grew a lot, didn't it? It grew a lot over the course of the years, right? But then look at 2002, a completely new size. You have the right here. This is where the United States would be. And then 2015, you can't even really see a continent. And then 2007, you're almost able to see every continent in the one picture. So their pictures are changing from year to year. They're never the same. They never look the same. They never match along the Earth doesn't look the same. Look at the colors don't match. The sizes never match. The Earth is always the same size, but everything in it is just a mess. Because God's allowing them to just mess up, do strong delusion. Everybody just believes it. They flat out just believe it.
Last week, scientists at NASA released this. The shot is compiled from data from NASA's VEERS instrument, which orbits the Earth about every 100 minutes, taking measurements of light coming off the planet. That can be translated into ribbons of imagery like this, and then into one of these. And this is just the latest in NASA's Earth from Space album, which may be one of the most mind-expanding collections of images in human history. Then in 2002, Blue Marble 2.0, NASA's Rob Simon made this. Simon's job is...
It's primarily taking data and making pictures out of it.
That's what this is, a composite of data sets from several different instruments translated into a picture.
So we actually had to take clouds out.
They stashed the clouds for later, and went onto the ocean. That came from an instrument that measures phytoplankton in the sea.
Where it was low, I colored it dark blue because they're low mostly in mid-oceans. And then where it was a little bit higher, it was like a little bit brighter green.
Then add the clouds back in.
There's a small problem with it because there's a very slight gap in between each orbit.
So some of those are painted on.
It is photoshopped, but it has to be.
Then
there was another layer to sort of simulate the atmosphere.
And then there's this little bright spot.
It's called the specular highlight. So it's the reflection of sunlight off of water.
Those are the pieces, but you can't just slap them all together.
It just didn't look realistic. It looks kind of flat, or the clouds are sort of too see-through. So I just hit Command-Z a lot.
There's artistry to creating the world.
What I imagine it to be. Unfortunately, I'm not an astronaut. I've never been to space. But I've looked at these images over and over again, trying to sort of get the essence of it. It is photoshopped, but it has to be. It is photoshopped, but it has to be. It is photoshopped, but it has to be. It is photoshopped, but it has to be.
Many lines of evidence to show that Earth is round, including Apollo photos of the round Earth.
And of course, we've taken all these amazing pictures from space. They're so beautiful, all those pictures of the Earth. There are so many proofs that the Earth is round, it's difficult to know where to start. And it's not okay to think that the Earth is flat. This is not a viable argument. I have friends who have been on the International Space Station. They have orbited the Earth once every 90 minutes. You know, I have had personal experience with people that have been up in space and can see with their own eyes that the Earth is round. And of course, we've taken all these amazing pictures from space. They're so beautiful, all those pictures of the Earth.
It is photoshopped, but it has to be. It is photoshopped, but it has to be. It is photoshopped, but it has to be. It is photoshopped, but it has to be.